So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me. I'm very happy to discuss this incredibly important and hard to
John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
Technical difficulties.
Maybe you can explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most
Yes. No? Yeah. Yeah, you got to off your volume. That's okay. Sorry about that, guys. John Taylor is not with us tonight. He's in transit down to Florida. He had some he was held up a bit on it. But I do have Neil with me.
Are we still having audio difficulties here?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what the heck to do.
Here, cut your video for a second. Sorry about that, guys.
Cut my Skype off.
No, just cut the video. In transit down to Florida.
Oh, where the hell is the video playing? That's what I can't find.
Yeah, but I think you have some volume going on the, or if might be coming out of your computer.
Okay, I'm sorry. How's that now, Howie?
Oh, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. How you doing, bud?
Sorry about that. I'm a techno turd.
You're totally fine. Well, we could start off by wishing you. Well, it's over now, but
don't even mention it, man.
Birthday. Nah, well, I had to, man. You're my bud, and 50's, 50's a big day. For those you don't know, Neil is of thelightreports.com. He put together he put completely together the March 25th ourchildrenmatter.net rally in Washington, D.C. He's been out on the front lines for years. I got to know him through that, and we've done some things together. One of the best was the Science March in Washington, D.C. with Tiffany, and it's just great to have him on. He's incredibly hardworking. He's incredibly determined. And, he absolutely, puts his money where his mouth is, and he goes out there and does things. And he's a true inspiration to me. And I'm proud to call him a friend.
Hey, well, thanks, Howie. But that's crazy. Like, we're all in this battle together, and, it's just a team effort. And it's like I'd like to take some time to address the situation with Matt Couch when he came to Washington, because I did make a video, and I'm happy to post this after, if you have a forum where I can post this for folks to view, that, sort of called him out on some of the false assertions that he made regarding the Seth Rich vigil that you and your team organized. And I'm happy to report that Matt, whose work I support 100%, let me clarify, has indeed removed the videos, the Periscope videos from Twitter, where he had admonished the demonstration, in my opinion, and those who organized it and participated in it. But I'm still seeking from him an apology to you and your team and a retraction of his statements, such as there was no silent vigil, and the things like accusing us of politicizing something that is inherently political already, and just those sorts of things. The many things I addressed in his video in a direct and polite response to him. So I'm still pressing him on an apology and retraction, and hopefully he'll come back with that soon.
Well, privately, I spoke to him on Skype, and he just, there was an incident at Joel where somebody took the bullhorn and was, shouting about Pizzagate. You and I have discussed that. And I was actually, when we moved from Spirit of Justice Park, to the vigil, I was actually coming up from behind. I was talking with somebody, and I came up and I saw the guy on the bullhorn, and I think that that's what Matt saw, and I believe that he thought that's what it was going to be about. So I don't fully blame him, because he did see that and he didn't want to be a part of that, and the work he's doing, and I can totally understand that. We shut that down quickly. We got the silent vigil off, and Matt has been nothing but, cordial. And, he's been great to me personally through the entire time. So I believe it's basically what we have going on here is a misunderstanding. And, I will personally take responsibility for, because, when you bring people together and you don't know who they are, sometimes, things happen. You can plan all you want, but, anyway, we controlled that situation, a misunderstanding. But the bottom line is, we all want to find out what happened to Seth Rich, because it's going to lead to bigger things. And, in my estimation, Matt's doing great work. He's a great guy. You are obviously, how I feel about you and everybody else. So we can get past, some of that stuff. And, Matt did take the videos down, and, that's in my book, it's closed. The vigil was done. Was it perfect? No. Could have been better? Yes. But, right. The main thing now is to move forward, everyone united, and keep working, towards finding out, what happened to Seth Rich, because there's so much information out there, and it just keeps growing and growing. And the main thing now is to get it, more into the public, to get, the average guy on the street to even know who Seth Rich was, because they don't even know.
Sure.
So that's where I stand.
No, and I'm with you. Like as I said in my initial response video, if you will, to Matt Couch, which is on Periscope. I fully support everything they're doing, and I understand that it really requires a multi-tiered approach to solve these problems, with investigators, with public awareness specialists, if you will, with journalists. I'm like a hybrid of many, and it requires a lot of different types, and no one entity, being, or movement is necessarily leading this, nor should they assume they are. And I'm glad to hear that it sounds like Matt Couch has reached out to you, or you guys are in communication and things are kind of smoothed out. That's great. I've been, politely pushing the public apology and retraction avenues simply because, his comments were made very publicly about what I feel were serious criticisms of the organizers of the Seth Rich vigil that was scheduled for meetup at the Spirit of Justice Park on Capitol grounds, with the entire intention, which you made me aware of days prior to, that the demonstration and the vigil was going to move down to the DNC headquarters, which is absolutely appropriate considering the circumstances.
And
so,
and looking back in retrospect, based on Matt's position in the investigation, I should have mentioned that to him, and that is 100% my fault. At least looking back in retrospect, I should have let him know. And he got there kind of late, so it wasn't, it was sort of like it was sort of at the time when things were moving along and he was being interviewed. But I should have said, hey, by the way, we're going to the DNC, just in case. I mean, I thought it was, in my mind, I'm like, damn, that's brilliant. And everyone's like, that's great. But, not everybody, but it, and it did come off as though maybe we were getting kicked out of the park. But Neil, me.
I think it was absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. And you know me, man. And, and I know you. And like, I'm not the type of guy that wants to stand in a park. If there's a DNC 2 blocks away, or there's a crowd, if there's outside the White House, the Capitol, wherever, I'm not standing in a park because I don't see the point in it.
Well, Howie, I mean, I just still think that there's a, just a brief public apology and retraction in order, because honestly, look, he didn't just attack. I don't feel like he just attacked the character of, the organizers, and I feel like it was kind of everybody that participated. And look, I understand that he jumped the gun a little bit, didn't have a full grasp of all the facts of the situation. I understand that. Been there, done that myself. But then there comes a time when you just, and he's kind of done that by removing the videos, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you attacked, he said some things that I felt like, considering the group of people that he was directing those comments towards, was grossly inappropriate. I mean, the people that were standing out there in front of the DNC building with all of us together last Monday are true freedom fighters for the most part, aside from an infiltrator maybe or two. And I just think an apology and retraction of those comments is in order. And I understand why he didn't have those facts in order. I understand how that series of events went down. I can see myself being in that same sort of thing, wondering, what's going on here. But at the same time, I think once all the facts have worked themselves out, that, in the name of remaining united and solving our common goals, achieving our common goals, that it's only prudent to, issue retractions, apologize, and move forward.
Sure. And, I'm not personally, I'm not going to press him on that. And I tend to agree with you because, when there is that, when something is put out there, and you have a lot of reach, not every, and then the video gets taken down and there's no retraction, then people still have that. Then people still have that, in their heads, and
of course they do.
Sure, and
absolutely. And it doesn't just to me it doesn't just taking the vids down.
Sure.
Hey, just issue a retraction, and we're on the same team. Let's move forward.
But I know in my heart whether formal retraction. He's, like I said, he's he's spoken to me, and hopefully people, I'll be able to get the message out. Now that I'm back on Twitter, I'll be able to get it out a little bit more. But my main thing right now is just keep pressing forward, keep getting with this investigation, because there's so many things that are out there. I mean, not even I would like you to talk about your interview with Brad Bauman, because not everybody has gotten to that yet, and I really wanted to push it more, but obviously since I've got knocked off of Twitter for the whatever how many time I haven't been able to do that. But it's really important stuff, and I don't know if Matt or George Webb have even seen this thing, but I'd really like them to, and not to mention everybody else.
Well, and let me just clarify that I think Matt Couch is sincere and trying to do good work, and I respect and support that. Does that mean I agree with everything 100% that no, not necessarily, nor do I expect him to do the same with me. But I do acknowledge, hey, we're all on the same team, man. We all have the same objective. So yes, let's put that together. Let's work together. Let's move beyond stuff. And let's fess up when we screw up and then move on. That's how you maintain credibility. When if you screw up, you just go ahead and fess up, apologize, and then, decent people forgive you and we move on, which is you're exactly right, Howie. That's where we need to go.
Right. And, unfortunately, we're talking about an infiltrator. I don't know who this guy was who grabbed the bullhorn. People that know me, I'm as Pizzagate is the next guy. I mean, I've been, I never, when things were going down, we need to stop calling it Pizzagate. I'm like, what do you mean stop calling it Pizzagate? That's how we got here. No, it's not the end all be all, but it's a part of this. So when a guy at a Seth Rich vigil starts screaming Pizzagate, 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 I'm like, yo, dude, what are you doing? Where'd you come from? You didn't get the memo? This is a Seth Rich vigil. You want to put together a Pizzagate vigil or a rally? Let me know. I'll be there. I'll be the first one there, but not right now. So why this guy did that and what his motivations were. And he's welcome to, find me on Twitter. Obviously we got your picture. So, I don't know what your deal was, but he knew what we were there for.
Yeah. This guy's obviously an infiltrator. The guy had bad energy. I was watching for a while. Watching his movements. He moves around like, I don't know, a chicken lizard combination.
Yeah. You caught some good pictures of him too. He had a very, I didn't like his look. And when I took the bullhorn, he didn't, he was looking at me like crazy. I'm like, dude, what are you looking at me like that for?
Yeah. Yeah, that dude, let me tell you, man, that guy did not have good energy, and he was sent there, man. He was probably sent there directly from the DNC, from the get-go to monitor things, and he was just a bag of squirrels, man. Bag of squirrels.
Well, I take that, I take that upon myself that I should have, I should have been there, a little earlier as it was going on, because, but when you're doing these things, and if you've never done them before, you just assume that everything's going to be okay. And then it's like, things can happen very quickly, and you can't control what other people are going to do. But, if there, if and when there's the next time for one of these things, I'll personally be more prepared, for the, what's the word I'm looking for the variables that, could happen. But, when you're doing this, and, usually it's just me out there, or, a few times me, you, and, Tiffany, I know exactly what I'm going to get. When you start bringing in, other people, you have no idea, what they're going to do. So
right. And I like what I think you said it while we were talking before the show, how I think you said that your favorite demonstration that we've done together, which is, I guess, about 4 or 5 now, was the science demonstration.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. I mean, I like that too. I really felt like, honestly, that day, like, we really confronted a lot of evil beings.
Oh man, it was. Right, and we kind of stumbled upon that because the day before, I originally come down for the demonstration outside the DC police.
Right,
And,
that's right.
Right, that was the Friday, and I didn't, and I had a feeling, you were going to be the only one there. And
well, you're right, except for Steve.
Right. One other. He
was there on March 25th at Lafayette Park.
Yeah, one other guy had shown up, but I said, I'm just not, because I saw you in New York also. And I said, I'm not leaving Neil down in DC by himself. So, it was like the three of us, but you know what, we made our noise, but that was on Friday. And then, Saturday we were looking around and, Tiffany came down and, we were looking at that pro-Trump march.
Tiffany, tell people about Tiffany. I mean, don't go into details, but just say like what she is to the team.
Oh, she's amazing. She's like quiet, behind the scenes. She loves getting in there. She loves recording. She's incredibly observant.
Techno genius, right?
Yeah, but she has an eye to pick stuff out. I mean, we were on Connecticut Avenue the day after the Science March, and we went into Politics and Prose bookstore, and she was and finding stuff that they had this little I forget, I don't know if it was an Alice in Wonderland type tunnel and stuff, but she was, there were, that
little weirdo.
The FBI keto signs were everywhere, and she just has this eye to, so I don't have that, but it's a good complementary kind of thing. And when it seems like when the three of us get together, and it was really demonstrated at the Science March because we didn't know how many people were going to be there. We figured like how many people could show up for a Science March, and lo and behold, we get down there and it's tens of thousands of people.
Oh my God, dude. It was huge. I think that was probably 200 to 250,000 people. It was huge, dude. I've been to and seen a lot of demonstrations in Washington, D.C., and that one was huge. And make no mistake, it was not a demonstration. Who in the world doesn't support real science? It was a demonstration. Demonstration is what it was.
It had very little to do with science. But
it was pretty much void of science, other than social science.
Right. But the three of us getting inside of being right in the middle, on the side of the crowd, and people passing by, and as we moved along with them. But it was like how many people did we find supportive towards Pizzagate the whole day?
Well, it was tough. And here's the other thing I like to remember about that day is the visceral response from some people, including like turning around and giving us the finger and saying "fuck you" to us, and it's just like, wow, really? It's like all we're trying to do is end crimes against children.
I mean, people were like genuinely angry that we were there.
Dude, they were visceral. They were like venomous. It wasn't just angry. They were beyond that. They were like venomous. It was like, whoa.
They had a look in their eye, like,
Yeah.
And I've seen that look before.
If looks could kill, right, Howie?
Yeah, man. I'm like,
experienced that day.
But that's kind of, I enjoy doing that type of stuff, like going to those types of things where they're not expecting anything and shaking their reality, and just like going to the DNC and, surprising, that's, they didn't know we were coming.
That was brilliant. Don't let anyone ever believe. Have you ever believed otherwise? That was a brilliant fucking move. Period.
Yeah. And my initial thing was, because you remember when I texted you, I believe it was on a Friday night. It was early in June. I'm like, dude, July 10th, 1 year anniversary, Seth Rich, me and you, DC, and we grew. We put together, we put together a team, and people gave of their time, and it had to, we were this close, man. We were just a few hundred people away from making that, a real significant event. But
no, it was a significant event. I mean, just look at the media that came there, and
sure.
Look, a lot of people always look for numbers. I look for quality over quantity. And aside from, again, we've already discussed infiltrators and stuff. Aside from that, the sort of beings that I saw there and interacted with at that vigil, at that demonstration, were very powerful, very solid beings. There's a reason that they're there at that time. It's not where it's necessarily great to have thousands of people. It's like the March 19th, 18th, is it 18th, 19th demonstration that Eric Galan put together.
The 18th, the first one, the 18th.
Yeah. I mean, we only had like 20 people down there. But I'm going to tell you, man, that was an incredible demonstration. Like the energy that was there, like we were indefensible. We really were. It was incredible. And they knew that too. They knew how powerful we were. And there was just a small group of us. So it really isn't in the numbers. It's really in the quality of, I guess how I describe it, Howie, is the quality of beings who have at least started to realize their true co-creative powers. To mold the future, to mold our reality.
Right.
We have
and you are
powers.
Sure. And you are an incredible optimist, and I'm not quite there. And don't get me wrong, I love every single person that came down, because people came from, Honeybee came down from New Hampshire. I had Jen came down from Long Island. Kathy came from Queens. There were people from Texas. People, made a trip. But the thing that I sort
John
of
came from Stewart, Virginia, which is like 5 hours away.
Right. So we hoping that we could have gotten some more people from the DC area and just stop over. It was late enough in the day, but it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop me from trying. And listen, I
shouldn't stop. I've had trying because it was a brilliant success, dude.
No, but I'm saying, but you know that, man, you got two, we can do it with 2-3 people, amongst, tens of thousands, and
absolutely. And totally stir the pot.
Oh,
right. We proved that at the science, demonstration.
And not to let, too much out of the bag, but, Neil and I have, we have an idea of, stirring the pot, quite a bit, and we're thinking of some things, because it just needs to be done. There's too much, the way the media's going, obviously, and just this constant barrage of fake news, this nonsensical, and people lapping the stuff up. It needs to be confronted, and what better way to confront it on the streets? So we have some ideas of some things that we want to do, and we've taken upon ourselves to say we're the right guys to do it. So hopefully in the next we're putting something together. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'm real excited about that. I think that man, as a team, we're a strong combination. Good cop, bad cop. We'll let people decide who's what out of that. And yeah, I look forward to that. I think we're going to do some really good stuff. I'm very excited about that. And yeah, it's like that's what it's all about, is stirring the pot, man, shaking things up, because my God, it really is. It's baffling to those that are even slightly awakened, I think, as to how many people are out there who still, for instance, trust CNN, who still, for instance, trust the mainstream media in general, who still, subscribe to the, really, I'll just call it a model of central banking false scarcity is really kind of what it is. And, but I do think that people are awakening quickly, Howie. I mean, what do you think about that? Is your overall sense that people are more quickly, exponentially becoming more aware, or where are you with that?
I mean, the people that are awake, I mean, are doing an amazing job. The people that, I've, particularly on social media, absolutely. But when we think in terms of the United States being 320 million people, I don't think we're quite where we close to where we need to be.
What do we do? What do guys like you and me do? Like, I post a blog on steamit.com all the time, putting up news and editorials on what's going on and my perception of what's going on.
I think
I post on Twitter. I'm getting away from Facebook. I'm going to get away from Twitter, by the way. Keep your eyes on Zapple, folks, because that's going to be a Twitter-like platform that pays you to tweet. Yeah, right. That's exciting, like Steamit.
Well, that's great. And, and there's the alternative Gab and, but I'm talking about, I use the Sarah Palin thing, Joe the plumber, I want to get to Joe the plumber, particularly when it comes to, child sex abuse and child trafficking, we've got the topic. I mean, we've got the goods. We've got the issue that people will get behind.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of bringing it to their attention, because there's guys, I mean, I've held signs on the street, and they're like, oh, Pizzagate. And they might know me from, Hillary for Prison. And they'll say, oh, what's that? Kind of like they literally have no idea. And they're not thinking it's anything that serious. And when I look at them, it says it has to do with child sex abuse and child trafficking. You see their faces drop.
Right.
And they're like, I'll check it out. And not, because you tell these guys and they don't, and women, and they want to know. So, how do we get it? We keep doing what we're doing, going to where they don't expect us to be, basically going where the people are. And if they're, one of my things about, getting attacked, that I wasn't able to go to July 4th in Philadelphia because there's a concert and fireworks and there's hundreds of thousands of people down there. And my whole plan was to stand out there and have every single one pass by, see the sign. Now, would they have stopped and asked questions? Not everybody, but they would have.
What kind of sign were you going to have, Howie? I love your.
I was going to do I was just going to do a Pizzagate sign. I got enough people.
I was going to say, like, Pizzagate is real. I wish it were fake.
Or investigate Pizzagate, because and people saying like get away from Pizzagate. Well, that's one thing, because we're already there. We're months. We're months ahead. I mean, this is going back to November,
right.
But in order for people to get it into their stream of consciousness and say, whoa, there's something going on, they can start from the beginning, just like I started from the beginning.
Exactly. And they can see the pictures on the Instagram account of James Alefontis, who owns Comet Pizza, with his allegedly 4-year-old goddaughter wearing a T-shirt that says Pizza Slut on it. And then his comment on a 1-year-old Gerber baby where he says Hotard, #Hotard. You know what? It's like, I'm sorry, but if that doesn't warrant further exploration.
Yeah, on what planet? On what planet? So for the people that want to just move on from it because we already know this stuff, well, I'm talking about using it to get it to people that haven't even gone on the journey yet. To get them acclimated, get them up to speed to Pedogate, because we can't lead with DynCorp, we can't lead with Haiti, because people, that's way too much.
Right.
You know, so that's where,
Howie, that's a great point.
And that's why I always stick with Pizzagate. And people are like, no, it's Pedogate. Well, it's Pedogate to you, but you're not out there with someone that's never heard the term Pizzagate. And for all the mainstream media that said it's already been debunked and all this other stuff, well, let the people decide. And the reality of the situation is just like, and the same thing with Seth Rich. You know, anybody can go out and do their own poll. As, you know, hey, have you ever heard of Pizzagate? You can ask 100 people. You'll be lucky to get one person. Ask 100 people if they've ever heard of Seth Rich. You're lucky to get one or two people. That's how so in our world, this is like, you know, the back of our hand and body cams and, you know, which hospital he was going to and shot in the back, a robbery gone wrong where nothing was about. They don't even know who he is.
Right.
They never heard.
Isn't that crazy, Howie? It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy living in a world where your eyes are awake and you're very aware and you know what to look at. You know what information to discern through. And then you're just baffled as to why 90% or more around you are completely oblivious of those facts.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, it's conditioning that's been going on for a really long time. The way, you know, we can get into all the reasons why, but it, you know, with the internet, we were talking about it before we came on. This stuff isn't, you know, you don't have to dig too deep to fit, you know, to see what's going on. Simple Google searches, simple internet searches for topics. Yeah, once in a while, just get, you know, 5 minutes for people. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I mean, when they're asking about Pizzagate, and I say, oh, you remember John Podesta, his emails were hacked, and they're like, yeah, I think I heard something about that. I was like, well, did you read any of them? No, nobody read the emails. Nobody. I mean, you're talking. I mean, how many emails? You could have read like 10 to 15 emails and got the basic gist of what's going on. Dreaming of a hot dog stand in Hawaii.
Wait a minute. You know, I want to discuss that one because I've been back and forth on it, and I kind of feel like that one should be abandoned. I feel like there are a lot more damning emails than the hot dog stand in Hawaii one.
Okay. You know? Well, I mean, that just popped into my head.
I know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, playing dominoes on cheese, you know, or on pasta, you know, like, come on, or cheese.
And the pizza map handkerchief thing.
Right. Exactly.
The kids in the pool will be entertainment.
The Tamara Lozado one, who works for Pew Research, and she's also a very you want to be very careful about mentioning her name on Twitter because it'll get you locked out. Calling 3 children entertainment, and just the way that email was written, it has such a bizarre tone to it.
Exactly.
And
you're not fooling anyone, Howie.
Yeah. So, like, you know, people would that's all we ever asked was just read the emails. Just take a look at the Jimmy's Instagram photos.
Well, it's already put together, you know, on many different forms. Pizzagate for Dummies, Pizzagate.com. Sure. Go and look at it, folks. Take 15 minutes before you just dismiss it.
But they never heard. Neil, what I'm saying is Joe the plumber never even heard of it. It didn't get out there enough.
I know.
One article in New York.
Howie, that's our job.
Right. So that's why, if you say how to do it, you go, my intersection in Philadelphia, it's just fortunate enough, I'm just fortunate that I have this 12-lane highway with lights and you can reach a lot of cars. Philadelphia has a lot of events. My ability to get down to DC and, have a place to stay with you and get up to New York and go to, an event like Gay Pride. I mean, whatever the thing is, just going places where they're not expecting this. Right. And it stands out so much more because, people could be out for a festival or something. And then it's like, I went to one of my most successful things I felt was like going to the NFL draft because, it just happened to be in Philadelphia and I didn't know what the reaction would be. And the first night I went, I was trying to get my sign on TV and it turned into a disaster. And I came back the second night and I just stood where everybody's walking by me and people were coming up like crazy because they're like, this is something different. And let me ask. And it wasn't, it was 95% positive.
Well,
and
one of the reasons for that, Howie, is because you put off a very positive energy, positive vibe. And I think that it's very non-threatening to people. And they want to come up and ask you, hey, what's up with that? That's why you're stand there with the sign silently and wait for them to come to you approach is very effective for you. You have the perfect energy for that approach.
Right. And I try to make myself approachable. I want to make it people feel like, and it's not like, because they're expecting when people do things, they're like yelling at them and all this stuff. But no, you let, there's something, it took me a while to realize it, but there's something just really powerful about a sign. And if you just present it the right way, you can have some type of impact. And, God, I really wish, more people would give it a shot because, it is effective. It is effective. And, I will continue to do it and make the signs big. People love big signs.
That's what I always tell people. It's like they reach out to me and hey, I'm just this regular guy, that, I believe in going out and expressing yourself, especially an issue as important as, stopping crimes against our children. And it's like, hey, just get out there, be a one-man demonstration, hold a sign up, pass out brochures. You don't have to say a word. It's like, that's just my style personally. Is I like bullhorns. I'm a verbal guy. I like, working through those things verbally. But I totally love and see the value of just holding the sign silently. The sign speaks for itself. The sign makes you think. I love that.
Yeah, I get vocal too, but it depends on the situation. If I don't want to, I don't want to go after people that, I don't want to turn people off that. Well, if you're getting, at the science march, I'm not going to stand there and be silent because you're getting all this flack. You know what I'm saying? They're looking at you like you're crazy. And now, all right, fine. You started it. Now I'll give it back to you. But if people are just walking and they're looking and they're curious and they don't know, I'm not blaming, I'm not going to blame somebody for not knowing about Pizzagate. I'm not going to blame somebody because they don't spend their time with human trafficking. But if they get this information and are asked to look at it and they get a little taste and then they choose to do nothing. Now I got that issue, but we have to draw the lines. Even if you're either with us or you're against us, you're either on the team or you're not. It doesn't mean you're involved in it. Doesn't mean you condone it. It just means you're not going to help the situation. And we just have to try and get every single person that will be willing to help in any way, shape, or form on the team. And it's not 50% of the country. I don't know what the number is, but we need, it seems like, President Trump is, starting to get the wheels in motion. There are a lot of arrests, a lot of cases out there, but this is going to take people saying we've had enough. We're not doing this anymore, and we are going to start protecting our children, and we're going to start protecting our country. Because if they're doing this to the children, it is just, I believe so much of the dysfunction in this country is because of child sex abuse. The children, they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're so traumatized at a young age that by the time, they have no chance going forward in life.
That's how the generational Luciferians work, is through traumatizing. By my research has revealed to me from folks who were in this that typically by the time a generational Luciferian is 10 years old, they are going to have participated in the torture and murder of another human being, and it's generationally passed on. They are traumatized just as their parents were. So it's an easy thing also for us to look at and go, wow, what monsters. But at the same time, we also have to, I think, start to position ourselves to maybe consider and have some empathy and say, hey, you know what? They were traumatized as children as well. It's a generational part of their religion to perpetuate that religion. So, it's just food for thought. I know it's tough to muster forgiveness for the sort of things that have taken place, which are just absolutely, they're deplorable, the true meaning of the word deplorable, not some politician spouting off about half of Americans out there. Oh. And, man, it's like...
No, I actually, Neil, I actually agree with you because, we tend to say, if we see this horrific story, it's just like, just kill them. And I'm like, well, let's, for me, it's like, first, let's take a step back because, before we say that, why don't we figure out how they got from point A to point B? Right. What happened and trace the steps? Because if we're just going to say, kill them, well, they have information. You want to pick their brains. You want to get the backstory, and maybe we can start figuring out what the hell is going on, because I don't understand it, man. Right. I'm on this earth 48 years, and 7 months ago I start seeing this stuff. I'm like, how did I miss it? How did I miss it?
Well, I think that every day that passes, the collective consciousness of humanity grows and expands, and that more and more people are awakening. I mean, just seeing the whole false narratives coming from these entities like CNN, who have been trusted for 2 or 3 decades, or entrusted for 2 or 3 decades. And people are just starting to see, that it's all just it's a orchestrated lie. There's narrative after narrative, and they're designed to control and manipulate us. And folks are just, I guess, well, the internet really has made it that they can't get that bias anymore. We're not falling for those sort of things. The control of the newspapers and the daily network broadcasts no longer cuts it. That's not even where people are looking for information anymore,
Yeah. And, and the things they put out, you can see how, contrived it is and how, manipulated it is. Because, the information that we get, just from our peers and in our groups, via, alternative sources, whether it's Twitter, Vote, Steam It, Reddit, wherever. And then you see, and when I don't have, we don't, you or I watch TV, but occasionally I'll plop on a CNN and I'll watch it. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, this isn't like, where did all this stuff come from? Right now, it never ends. Like, where, not one piece of information that I ever get is ever, put out on television. It's, it's just mind boggling.
Well, it's funny, like you said, every once in a while, like I'll catch CNN, whatever, at an airport or who knows, sure, gas station. And it's just like, oh my God, like it's totally like the way in which they're speaking, everything. It's just like a production, and you're just like, it's so obvious that it's just like a propaganda production that it's.
Yeah, I was talking about this on a podcast on Saturday. I mean, they still call it news, but what they end up doing, particularly CNN, I have my major issues with MSNBC, but what CNN does, they throw something out and then it's like, let's go to the panel. There's always a panel, and it's 4 people spouting, and it's opinion.
Right.
I mean, wait a second. We can't even differentiate between opinion and news. When somebody's sitting there giving their thoughts on something or other, that's not news. And I mean, during the election, they needed like bigger desks. They'd be like cramming like 24 people around a desk, and it's like, like going down the line. But they never have less than 4 people on a panel. Since when is this news? It's opinion. It's op-ed. So they need to change CNN to CN op-ed.
Well,
so I'll put that in the schedule.
I'm sure they carefully select their panelists as well.
Oh yeah, they already know. It's always 3-1. Listen, before we finish up tonight, I had wanted to. John was supposed to be here, but he was unable to because of his travel plans. July 9th was the 1-year anniversary of the rape and murder of a 14-year-old girl outside of Philadelphia. Her name was Grace Packer. The story, it was a rape murder fantasy by her adopted mother and her adopted mother's boyfriend. It was planned for 7 months, and the story it's very complicated. So when John comes back on Tuesday, we'll dive deep into that. When it happened, when it came out in December, when I found out about it, and part because the story was so horrible, it was right in the heart when I was getting into Pizzagate, and because it was outside of Philadelphia. But as the media tried to keep narrative on the adoptive mother and the boyfriend and the death penalty and all other stuff. The story goes much, much, much deeper. And this poor girl, how much she suffered throughout her life. And to think that, when we're talking about, child sex abuse and child trafficking, the stories are the children are getting younger and the stories are getting more horrific. And just to make a comparison, right around the same time, there was a 10-year-old beautiful girl in New Mexico. She was also raped and murdered. It wasn't her adopted; it was actually her actual mother. She was going on a website called Plenty of Fish, something, meeting men online to come over and rape her 10-year-old daughter, Victoria Martins. And the reason she did this is because she got off on that. Wow. That was her excitement. So there's some parallels in these stories, and we're not, and the fact that these are not out in the forefront and getting people to wake up to the reality that it's beyond.
Can I finish that sentence? The reality, absolutely. The reality that Luciferian pedophiles actually control this planet. That's the reality.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah. Well, with the Victoria Martins case, the man who the mother invited over, he was on meth, and I believe there's. There's the Luciferian aspect to the abuse, but there's also this scourge on society of methamphetamines, fucking speed, crystal meth that we need to get a hold of, because what people do on this drug, and I've never done it. I know somebody that has done it, and I've seen it with my own eyes. How just absolutely crazy. I believe some of these horrific stories of raping babies, and I think meth is plays a part in this also. So, but once again, unless we get the backstory, what's going on with these people, if we just look at it and say, oh, mother invites, meets a man online, comes over, rapes it. Oh, just go kill him. well, wait a second. I'd like to know exactly how we got to that point.
Yeah. How did that all go down so we can
make
sure that ends?
Because it's beyond comprehension. Beyond comprehension.
It is. Well, it's like, the biggest thing in my mind goes back to the science demonstration again, is that, you try to hand somebody a brochure and it's like, hey, the message that sends right away is at least I care enough about what I'm doing to have created a brochure that I can hand you. And then to have those people, reject that and then say, hey, this is to end child trafficking and crimes against children, and have them reject that again. That's like, for me, that's like a really tough thing to kind of work through that. Wow. People that brainwashed for their particular party or their particular politics, that trumps, all these kids getting, all the nasty things that are happening to those kids. And it does. Unfortunately, it does trump that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that crowd was a special kind of crowd. So, well, that wasn't, my America. But, like I said, I've been, I'll use the NFL draft as a good gauge where, people were very neutral and, they were just there for football. And I was really surprised the positive reaction that I got, and how many people wanted to, find out about it, would listen to me and would say, yeah, I'll check it out. And they weren't, it wasn't just lip service, and it wasn't just passing by. People would stop and talk. And honestly, I was there for even 3-4 hours, and I didn't have a moment, by myself. People were constantly coming up and asking. So there's hope. There's hope, but we just got to keep working, man. Got to keep working harder and, spreading the word.
Well, Howie, I mean, there is definitely hope. It's like things are going on. I think at a solid pace, at very high levels that most people aren't aware of, that are laying the groundwork for what I'll describe as the liberation of humanity, which will certainly include, protecting and rescuing all the children and beings that are, victims to Luciferian pedophiles. That day is coming very soon. The time for them to actually surrender and beg forgiveness. And I'm going to say, I was preaching that 9 months, a year ago, has come and gone. That opportunity is gone. That will no longer, that's no longer an option for them. And they are essentially facing being disintegrated as energetic beings. And that's what's going on right now on Earth. We are in the process there. If you, for instance, watch Gaia TV and watch David Wilcock's wisdom teachings, he does a great job of laying out what I'm going to call ascension science, physical science that is occurring right now that is absolutely important.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I didn't cut you off. We just ran up against it.
No, I understand. And it's going to bring about huge changes on this planet. Huge, positive changes. Thanks for having me, Howie.
Well, thank you so much. You saved my bacon tonight, bro. All right. Have a great night, guys.
This is JJ, the